Good morning, dear participants. I request all of you to turn off your mics. We'll be starting with the session now. And somebody posted a query regarding quiz. Quiz will be held tomorrow, and the timing will be notified to you via email or during the sessions itself today.
Okay, good mornings.
Good morning, sir. So you may start off with the session.
I'm audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir. Okay, everyone says yes, I'm audible. Okay, good mornings to everyone. I'll continue with my session only small aspect of web security and the cyber forensics. Then I will shift to biometric security. That's what I planned up. And then what I have planned up is after maybe I'll give around 20 to 30 minutes to my research scholar who will be talking about what exactly we are doing in a biometric security as a research area. That will be quite useful for all of you. So maybe web security, yesterday somebody has talked to you about maybe SQL injection, password breach, data breach, overflow, remote file exclusion, or cross-site scripting. I'm not going into details of all these things. Idea is how exactly this happens is, as I said, there is a web application firewall, application is there, core infrastructure is there. There may be legitimate traffic and malicious traffic. So we have to identify what is the malicious traffic, which is what can be a problem for our issues, and how exactly that's how we can mitigate that sort of vulnerabilities there. Now then he talked to you about this DOS also. Okay, how exactly DDoS attacks are there through which your system can be affected. Yeah, denial of service, maybe bot can be the one who can give you number of attacks there, and there can be only one target system on which it is attacked. And now this is another area which is there, which we say is a cyber forensics. A cyber forensic is an area of cyber security only, where in case something happens, how exactly we have to capture the thing. Let's say somebody receives a fake email. How can I find out if the email which has come to me is a fake one there? Or in case I lose some money in a banking transaction, I complain to bank. How exactly will bank find out whether there is something which has happened to me or not? So it's what we also call as a reverse engineering, whereby I try to find out based on some of the things, how exactly I can analyze who is the one who would have committed this thing there. So that's what we say is a practice of capturing, collecting, processing, analyzing, and reporting of a digital data in a legibly permissible approach. Now, there are forensic labs which are there who are doing this. In case some data is to be captured, let's say there is a terrorist there who are using digital media for communication. In case I would like to capture their communication, there is a legal provision through which I can capture that, collect that, and process, analyze, and report on the digital data there. And it basically deals in detecting and preventing cyber crimes. Because usually we know there are so many cyber crimes which are happening, but how exactly we have to detect those cyber crimes and how we can prevent that cyber crime is the most important component there. And they use a specific methodology where evidence regarding any crime is discovered by putting forward in the court of law. Because obviously, in case something happens and there is a criminal who would have done it, then who can give the punishment to them as it's a court of a law. Maybe police is the one who investigates, and court of the law gives the some sort of a punishment, some sort of a legal remedies for the people around. So basically, let's say in case there is an email which is is a fraud email there, I would like to find out who is the one who has done it. Then one mechanism is, as we have got, just like in case of a social media, also in case somebody uploads my picture, what should I do? Now, one is this cyber forensic is a part of the application which or the application which has been developed by the person there. He is the one who is liable to think of this sort of remedies for someone to remove his profile, to remove his picture from there. And another is in case I go for the legal aspect there. Now, why we need a cyber forensics? Okay, basically, it is required for a detection and prevention of the crime there. Okay, once I would like to detect a crime or prevent a crime, how exactly I can do it? And to survey a crime scene that is associated with the digital evidence. I think this is the biggest lacuna there. In case of any fraud, of let's say banking fraud we talk about, in case somebody sitting in US is able to withdraw money from the Chandigarh account, then it's very difficult to survey the crime scene as compared to in the physical crime, where the police goes to the cyber crime scene and find out and collects the evidence there. In this particular scenario, we have to collect the digital evidence. What's the digital evidence? Let's say I will have to find out what is the IP address from where this particular crime has been committed. So this is what we say to survey a crime scene that is associated with any digital evidence. Then we search and identify data that is related to cybercrime in any digital asset. Let's say I could find out if there is some malicious information kept on the hard disk. Now, that means in my search and seizure process, I have to take care of how exactly I can take away that hard disk and present in the court of a law that this is the proof which I got as far as the data is concerned. And digital evidence can easily be destroyed if not handled properly. Let's say this is what happened in the earlier days. Once we were not having a very strong cyber forensic labs, your digital evidence, once even if police gets that, they are the ones in their own innocence will destroy that also. Let's say now these days we have got a lot of devices for copying the hard disk also. Let's say I got a hard disk. The first thing I had to do is I had to copy that hard disk, keep the original secured, and whatever forensic I would like to perform, I'll be performing upon the copied hard disk there. So there is the first golden rule which is there as far as cyber forensic is concerned. You have to be very clear that this sort of thing has to be handled at the copied level only, not on the original level. Now let's say another forensics can be in case there is a Word file which somebody had deleted. Delete that particular file. Undelete that file. Or somebody has sent the mail through using some system of his own which has got his IP address. Can I just, in case he has deleted that email, can I retrieve back that particular email or not? So this is what we call cyber digital evidence which we have to collect. In case they have been destroyed, how exactly I can have them again. Maybe cyber forensic also helps in recovering encrypted, deleted or corrupted files. This is the most important component as far as cybercrime is concerned. In case there is an encryption there, or some file has been deleted, or some file has been corrupted, how exactly I can detect this sort of, because we also deal with some of the cases which CBI people or security people handles. There are tools through which we can detect information. Maybe that is a corrupted file. Maybe from the blocks itself, if I start reading by block, I can find out the uncorrupted file components from there, and I can recover that file and then encrypt it. You might have seen the case of Apple mobile. In US, Apple says, no, I can't give you the keys because I also don't keep the keys. But ultimately, a security forces prevailed upon that. They could recover the key from the Apple only. Because that's another challenge which is there. In case data has been encrypted, because Professor Sanghi and Amandeep has talked to you about encryption. Now, in case data has been encrypted and it is being transmitted, I understand this is the one which is created problem field. Can it decrypt it? So this is another area which cyber forensic people deal with. Now, these are various steps of a cyber forensic there. Okay, what we have got is incident occurred in any company or organization. Let's there is some. Then the company advocate is the one who will connect the cyber forensic investigator, and they prepare the FIR. We say the first response report, and investigator then sees the evidence and other assets related to the crime scene. There is a very famous story about police. Maybe earlier days, police were not knowing what is the crime scene and what is the information to be captured. Now, in their own anxiety, since things were being shown on the desktop monitor, they took away the monitor only. Okay, asset is this is where the evidence is there, and ultimately we have to see what is the evidence, what is to be captured over there. And then all these analyze the files and other assets and make use of it. And they examine all the data one after the other and may further contact the group of people associated with that only. And once you conclude the investigation, then you go to the legal authorities to press the charges against the offense of court of law. Maybe there will tomorrow there will be a session on the legal aspect of there. I'm not going to detail of that. But can you imagine for the 10 years, once IT laws were made, there was no conviction there. Why there was no conviction? Our systems were slow and we couldn't convict anyone in this particular process there because my police was not competent to handle cybercrime because there's some more technical crimes there. And my legal fraternity was also not ready to accept whatever my investigator was saying that. So that's why for the 10 years, there was no conviction there. But later on, based on the forensic investigation, there were convictions there. Maybe in the earlier days, court will not take data which has been produced by the lawyers based on the digital evidence. They would like to go for the physical evidence there. Maybe there are a lot of changes which happened in the cyber law, cyber other things there. And then we have able to have more cyber forensic digital investigation there. Then another is your disaster recovery planning. Let's say in case cyber crimes happens, what is the DPR we have got? We call it a disaster recovery planning. Maybe one disaster is in case there is an earthquake. What sort of a planning I have got? But in case some other thing happens, my server crashes. What sort of a disaster recovery planning I can think of? What we say is a DPR is a business continuity plan. And these are managed procedures that describe how work can be resumed quickly and effectively after disaster. As I said, one is a natural disaster which can happen. Other is a disaster by the cyber criminals there. Now, in case some cyber crime has happened, how quickly I can resume the business. Let's say you imagine a bank where server has been hacked, and they could make certain modification or they could make certain changes into my database on. Now, can I switch over to the other server effectively, and in how much time I can do it? This is what we say is a business continuity plan. Now, what they say is disaster recovery strategy should start at the business level and determine which application are most important for running the organization activity. Now, maybe if you look at any of every organization has certain critical activity and certain routine activity. It's the most of the time cyber criminals affect your critical activities there. Now, my disaster recovery should also deal with the critical things there. So now, then how much should I invest? Because in the earlier days, people will not invest anything into the security. In case I'm going for a 1 lakh desktop or a laptop, I'll not purchase the antiviruses on that, or I'll not purchase the legal software for that. Why? Because I have to pay that. So that's what it depends upon. Once I'm acquiring any asset, how much should I spend upon the security there? That is where the balancing has to be there. Your financial budget, what is the resources, technology, administration, and the hardware which you are looking for. In case there is certain recovery strategy which has to perform, what sort of a budget is there? Because I can imagine I can set up my recovery server there in US, cost may be high, or I set up my recovery server in next sector only. Maybe budget may be low because I can manage, but in case it falls in the same seismic zone, maybe the threat of the disaster is always there. So that's what we have to think about. What sort of budget is there? What sort of resources I have to deploy? What is the technology I'm going to use? Okay, let's say you imagine, in case I go for my fallback upon server, every transaction I duplicate there. That's a fairly good, strong system which is there. But how much are the resources? What sort of technology is required is the most important component there. And maybe how much is the hardware I have to spend there. In case I have to replicate a server there at some other systematic zone with the same one where every transaction is performed, maybe my hardware cost will be very high in that sort of a situation there. So these are some of the steps which some of the research people or industry people had identified for DRP. What sort of asset? The only thing is, first of all, you have to identify your assets. And the another is you have to identify what sort of threats are there, what sort of vulnerabilities are there for those assets. My threats may be very high as far as my organization is concerned. You imagine the threats which are there for a server, which are there for the academic institute, may be much lower as compared to the banking application, and banking application may be having a very low threat as compared to the hospital information, or it's a controls application which is there, or some of the application which is related to my defense there. So I had to find out what sort of threats, what sort of vulnerabilities are there. Based on that only I can think about my assets and the liability, and ensure data protection that's usually there, and create a disaster recovery team. Obviously, in case of a disaster, we have to think about who were the one who will take care of this particular disaster there. And then we established a team member accountability there, whether they are accountable or not, and create a data recovery plan there. Test your data recovery plan, review, backup, update and revise, and possibility implement in a. Now, this is where we implement these days. It's a cloud backup which we implement. For most of our application, we go for the cloud implementation. Now, maybe data center, then we got a data center disaster recovery feature which built such as physical security, supports personal backup power, Then power also is one of the critical factor as far as any continuity plans are there or utility providers are there. And we have got a cloud-based disaster recovery planning also, which can cut some cost to some extent there. Now you have to virtualization of the need to reconstruct a physical server there. Can I think of virtualization the server? Or I can think about a disaster recovery as a service there. Maybe just like cloud, we have got a software as a service, hardware as a service. Can I think about a disaster recovery as a service? That can be one of the option which can be there, okay, where a site-to-site service there, or some of the rebuild server or VPN or a desktop protocols are there as a cloud-based thing only. Then another is your operational security. Yeah, this is the most important component as far as cyber security is concerned. Okay, once any organization is there, they have to think of what is the vulnerability, what is the threats they have got. Academic institute may not be having any threat, because let's say I got a server, I'm in the academic section things only. What is the data I may be having? Maybe it's a data about the students' projects there. Even if I lose that, maybe loss is not very high. Student would have kept its backup for some of his program at some place. So that's what we say, operational security is analytical and risk management process that identify the organization critical information and developing a protection mechanism. For operation security, what we say is, whatever is the information which I got, I have to develop a critical, how to identify what is the critical information out of that. Because obviously, once Amandeep and Professor Sanghi has talked to you about the cryptography, we never say you encrypt all the data which is there. You find out what is the information which is critical. That particular information you try to do. Now that's what we say. These are steps of operational security. Define the organization sensitive information. What is the sensitive information which is there, which may be private, which may be more critical. You define that, and you identify the category of the threats for that information. Because all the time we talked about cloud security, we talked about website security. We have to think about what sort of threats are there in that particular category only. Now, in case, let's say you imagine my site, which is there is a static site only. I may not require much security there as compared to in case my website is a dynamic website there. And then you have to analyze the security holes and the vulnerabilities there. Okay, what sort of security issues are there in this particular thing, and what is the vulnerabilities there? Then we go for the risk assessment there. That is another very big area which is coming up very fast in the industry, as well as a lot of researchers were happening there. Okay, how to assess assessment of the risk analysis there, and you implement the appropriate countermeasures for that particular risk which are associated there. Then another most important component is your end user education, because your end user are the most people who are at the security risk. Why security risk? Because let's say your end people are there, they are the one who are operating your system. In case they become vulnerable, then obviously whatever security measures you think of, you will not be able to make your system secure. That's what we say, end user becoming largest security risk any organization. If you look at BPO industry in India, there is a lot of effect which has happened on the BPO industry only. Why? Maybe end users. I can give you the example. There is one BPO industry who were dealing with the USA companies insurance backend support. Now there was one employee there. What he did was he took away all the data related to the clients of an organization to whom they have given the insurance cover. Now, and he sold that data to somebody, some of his contemporary. His whosoever was the person who was involved in the similar business, he sold the data to that, And what that fellow did was he started calling each one of them. Okay, I can provide you this particular service at a lower cost. The moment somebody got this information, I can get it at a lower cost, then ultimately his business will go. Now, same is true with your, as I was giving the example, your mobile. Suddenly you receive a call. Suddenly you receive a call. Would you like to shift your service provider as far as the mobiles are concerned? You say no. But have you ever realized how exactly he is getting the data about you? And you are getting so many informations like this only. So this is what your end user, the most vulnerable component as far as any organization is concerned. Because usually we say end user has no fault of their own, but due to lack of awareness and business security policies, they're the ones, they suffer from the cyber attacks. Now, end user threats can be created according to the following ways. Maybe you got a social media, text messaging, downloading app.
Hello.
User,
Sir, sorry to interrupt.
most important component in any organization is use of your email. Because
Hello.
how many emails you're sending, how many attachments you're making.
Hello, sir,
Industry,
sorry to interrupt.
they try to see how many mails this fellow has sent, where he sent, and goes through some sort of a checks there. Only then mail, official mail can be created.
Hello, Sofat sir.
Your password creations and the user. So this is another thing which is there. Okay, you go for a passwords, and suddenly your password will become vulnerable. There are so many bank frauds which has happened due to this passwords only. What somebody might have done is, while he gives his password to somebody else, and that other fellow misuses his password. That's why maybe we'll talk about biometric security. What's a biometric security? Now, that's what we say, arrange cybersecurity awareness training program on a regular basis. This is one of the has to do for cybersecurity there. So these are some of the challenges which were there as far as the latest challenges which are there. Ransomware was one of the attacks which was growing day. Earlier, there were people who would play. Now it has become a somebody will hack your website, hack your server, lock your server, and in this process they ask for some money. There are so many cases sort of environment.
Hello, sir, your screen is not visible.
Is one of obviously blockchain is the one of the things which has emerged as one of the technology, as Poonam has talked to you about that. But it is a complementary integration, traditional proven and cybersecurity approaches which are there in the blockchain evolution there. Then another is the IoT threats. That is the latest threat which is happening. Because IoT is,
Hello.
which is a very small sensor which are there. They are all susceptible to cyber attacks. Maybe these days we talk a lot about IoT is your refrigerator, air conditioners, and others. Now these are becoming a threat for yourself. You imagine you're the ones who are setting the temperature at your refrigerator, sitting at your office only.
So, sir.
But in case somebody is able to hack this application,
so your screen is not
visible.
visible.
Able to set up the other way there. So this is what we say IoT is the biggest threat, which is there as far as the cyber security is there. Why it's a threat there? Because IoT, whatever sensors we use, they may not be the secure one. Or whatever are the firmware which we use for this, maybe not the secure which we are using for the consumer business there.
Screen is not visible, sir. Screen.
Maybe then another is the AI expansion. There is a huge expansion of the AI which is there. Okay, that can be the one which can think of better cybersecurity strategy has the ability to protect and defend the environment when the malicious attack begins. Because what AI does is it's a behavioral thing also. How because it's a both. Through AI, the malicious people can also understand your behavior, your spending pattern and other thing. The same way I can also find out what sort of possible attacks which can be there based on the data only. That's why it's the biggest challenge. AI itself is the biggest challenge. Maybe the person having the data can be the one who will be attacking you in your behavior because based on your behavioral thing. Because let's say he knows you're the one who this is your spending pattern. Can I attack you for the spending pattern only? Maybe that's what we say. AI can be a future protective controls, or it can be a in the
screen is not
of the malicious people also. Then we talk about surveillance app vulnerability. Now,
Your screen
so
is
the things
not
we
visible.
talk about is a third level infrastructure or a back end services which we go for.
Hello.
Now
Hello,
we have
sir.
to think about what sort of
Hello.
service level
Hello, sir.
agreement we have to have in this sort of third party cloud infrastructure so that we are not attacked. Let's say in case there are certain standards where there is a cloud secure, is the organization where I'm going to have the cloud infrastructure is having that
Excuse me, sir, your
security or
screen
not?
is not visible, sir.
This is what we have got as far as the various facets of cyber security. This is one of the major area which is there.
Sir, your sir, sorry, sir, your screen is not visible.
We'll talk about that.
Sir, your screen is not visible, sir.
Just 1 second. I have to take a call. Hello.
Hello. Sofat sir, are you able to hear me? Hello.
मैम इलेक्शन अरे वो
Hello.
विजिबल नहीं है ओहो, कितनी देर हो गई लेट मी सी किसी और ने तो नहीं यूज किया बीच में नहीं नहीं वो तो अमनदीप को बोलोगे जरा ठीक है मैं चेक करता हूँ
Hello.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got the message that my screen is not visible. Amandeep?
Hello. Yes, sir. Sir, are you able to hear me now? Hello.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. It's visible now. Are you able to hear?
Okay, it. Let me just.
Go to presentation mode.
Yes, it. Amandeep, is it visible now?
Hello. Yes, sir. It's visible. Are you able to hear me now?
Am I audible?
Sir, you are audible, but I think you're not able to hear me. Your mute. I think your speaker is
Okay,
mute.
then am I audible also? Okay. Okay, I hope then I can continue. Maybe I'll start with the biometric security. Sudhi Sharma has raised the hand. Can he just tell me what is the issue?
For the
To you.
past, for the past
Okay,
10
I'm
minutes,
audible. Thank you.
your screen is not visible.
Okay, we
Try to
start with the biometric security. A let's say that's what we say biometric. You are waiting in the line, and suddenly you see my speaker is not muted.
Sir, are you able to hear me now?
Good morning, Jay.
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, are you able to hear us now?
Now I'm able to hear you.
Okay. Okay. Now it's fine.
Okay. Right. Now maybe we'll start our topic. There is a biometric security. We did talk about your passwords. Where if you have got a password, you're not able to make use of the somebody steals your password and takes away the information from you, or you forget your password, you're not able to see the things there. You're not able to access the things there. So this is what example. You're going standing in the queue, forgetting your PIN number, and it's a frustrating experience. But it's a fairly universal experience. You forget your password. That's very common. You change your password, suddenly you forget it. What is the thing I can do? Maybe in case I can have some other mechanism there. So what we have to do is, that's what we say, we have to identify ourselves every time. On a numerous occasion, we have to identify ourselves, maybe entering code or a keyboard to enter the workplace, or a password to log on to your computer, or a PIN number to access your cash in the bank. This is what we do every day. Maybe that's what we have critically recorded password or a PIN number in the contact section of a diary. Maybe you just store it in your diary somewhere there. But since and these days what we do is we store our PIN number or any of the number on your mobile also. You record it on a paper, you record it on your digital media. So this is what we do because if we don't want to forget. Maybe that's what is becoming a threat. Your cyber hacking and the sophisticated method of organizing the crimes there. So that's why this is biometric is one of the techniques where in case I forget something, then I can't do anything. But in case it's a biometric, it's a part of my body only, which acts as my password, then I can't think of forgetting that. That's what we say, something that is a part of a user, maybe your fingerprint or iris, it can't be forgotten, it can't be stolen. That's a basic philosophy based on which biometric came into the existing. Maybe your ATM card can be stolen, but in case you got a biometric, it can't be stolen. The biometric can be stolen. In case you have got your, let's say you imagine your ATM card, it can be stolen, you can lose your PIN number, all these sort of things are possible. But in case your ATM card is linked to your fingerprint or iris, then even if I lose the card, nobody will be able to use it. Even if I lose my pin, maybe I forgot full, still with my fingerprint only, I can make use of it. That's what we say is the biometric there. So these are some of the biometric traits which are there. Maybe psychological, physiological, behavioral there. Maybe your fingerprint acts as a one of the mechanism through which you identify your iris, your hand, your face, your retina, vein, and other. These are some of the examples which are we say is the mechanism through which you can identify, or your behavior also. Your behavioral is how hard you press your keyboard. That can be one, or your signatures can be another one, or your voice can be another one, your gait, your accent, and other. There's so many ways through which we can identify some of the behavior of a human being there. Now, these are some of the behavior traits which are there. There's a shape of a body. Maybe your physical characteristics, your face, fingerprint, hand geometry, iris, retina, and the ear. Maybe there are so many examples where with the face only you're identified. And another is because these are some of the unique things there. My face is unique, my fingerprint is there, my hand geometry is unique, my iris is unique, my retina is unique, my ears are unique. So this in case my physical characteristics are there, they are unique, I can make use of it. But yes, in case of a handicapped people, what should be the way done? Maybe we just OR them, either face or fingerprint or iris or retina or ear. In case somebody doesn't have got anything of this, we can't, biometrics traits cannot help. Now, this behavioral traits, as I said, this is the pattern of the behavior of a person. How exactly he behaves in an environment there. Maybe the way he types gives it case strokes, maybe his gait is there, the way he walks, the way his voice is there, the way his signatures are there. All these are nothing but the way you can have your biometrics there. This can also act as your biometric. Signature also acts as a biometric there. Why these are some of the characteristics of the biometrics? If they are unique, that's the first thing which is there. Traits should be sufficiently different from individuals, because in case I got a unique trait, only then I will say this is what can be used as a biometric for me, and it's a permanent. If I give somewhere my fingerprint, then obviously my fingerprint will not change. And it should be universal. Every person should possess it. Maybe there are extremities there. In case you are just going by the fingerprint, somebody doesn't have got a hand, then that may be the only exception. But otherwise, we have got this. And your measurability and ease of acquisition, how easily I can acquire it. Maybe once Aadhaar was the one where people want to give this biometric characteristics, okay, acquisition become very easy because there were very reliable devices which came for the giving your fingerprints there. And performance is, okay, what is the accuracy it gives? Let's say you imagine in the earlier days, if you stand in a queue where your entry is through your biometrics, maybe your biometric machine doesn't understand or get your information very fast, or is it slow. So this is what we have got. Is a performance, is accuracy, speed, and robustness are the ones which should be there as a performance is concerned, and acceptability. There are a lot of debates which is there. Okay, whatever data we are giving for the Aadhaar, is it my privacy is maintained or not? Who are the ones who are using it? There are a lot of discussion which goes on, but still it's an acceptable thing which is there. Okay, we have to think about whether they are acceptable or not. So there are so many applications which are there for the biometrics. Okay, your financial services, consumer devices, healthcare, enterprise, retail, border control, citizen ID, law enforcement, everywhere we got some application as far as the biometrics are concerned. Maybe a law enforcement, they are using it to the maximum. What they do is they take the fingerprint or some of the identification of the criminals there, and then from that they try to identify who's the one who's the criminal there. Maybe criminal identification systems are there. In case I put all the traits as far as a criminal are concerned into some database, and the moment there is any crime which happens, and from there I capture his information and try to match. So that's what we say, the fingerprint, palm print identification system which are there. They're basically store, retrieve and search fingerprint images and the records there. And there are so many automatic biometric identification systems are there, which are for storing the biometric information about the individual. Otherwise, earlier days, for any criminal, police used to keep the photograph of his. Now they keep the biometrics of all the criminals who are there in this particular line. Maybe all the airport security, you might have seen this. You press your biometrics and you're permitted or not permitted to enter there. And healthcare, most of the data which is there with the healthcare, all personnel out there, doctor access to them, they quickly and they need to be efficient in that. So this is what we say, that's another uses of the biometric. And the travel, your passport, these days have got your, the moment you go to any passport office, they will like to take your 10 fingerprints there. Why? Because maybe in match and mix, they would like to make it a very secure system in this particular authentication process. This attendance system is very common, which is there for any organization. Maybe you have got a biometric there. Now, earlier days, it's a iCard which used to be there. Maybe somebody will push the iCard of somebody else and says he's also come there. But with the biometric attendance, if still the time you reach there, you put your biometrics there, you can't be there present for it. Maybe then biometric is attached with the time attendance also these days. Okay, the moment you push your any biometric, your your time of your arrival, time of your departure is also noted in this particular process there. Maybe that's what biometric attendance is there. Now then we got a physical and a logical address controls also there. In case of any building, campus or server room has to be controlled, and I would like to give access to 10 people only for that, I can just make use of biometric to give access to that particular person there. Now, then obviously in case biometrics is there, we have to think about its security also. How exactly there may be some companies, individual hacker intent or a fraud or identity theft which is there. Maybe that's what we use this for the day-to-day working also. Now, this is the biggest challenge. Are biometrics secure and safe? Because this is the biggest area of research these days. Okay, whatever biometrics we have got, are they secured or they will be kept safe there somewhere? Because there is a privacy concern when it comes to biometrics. Maybe your biometric data can be hacked. Because there are so many instances in the Aadhaar which are reported that somebody has hacked and taken away some of the data. Or for my web application is not strong, I could take, instead of one individual biometrics, I can take the data for so many individuals there. And that's what we say, biometric database may be more vulnerable than any other kind of a data. Another is some piece of your physical identity can be duplicated. That is what is happening these days. In your fingerprint also, somebody can capture your fingerprint and make you to pay for that. So that's what it's just a joke. They keep him talking. I'm also downloading the biometric here. Now, these are some of the point of attack in a biometric system. They can be at the sensor level or the channel level or the feature extraction level or a matcher level or the stored template level. Whatever template I got, they can be the ones where you can be attacked. So these are what we say is in most of the research paper, you'll find out these are the level of attack which people talk about. Your sensor level, channel level, feature level, matcher level, or the stored template level attacks which are there. So this is a very famous Rathe template which is there. Most of maybe some of you might be working in this particular area only. Rathe is the one who defined this. These are at a sensor level. It can be your fake biometric which can be there, or at a second level, you sensor somebody can replay your old data. It is captured, but it overrides that and replays the old data there. Or it overrides the feature extraction. Maybe you got a feature extractor there. Somebody may be able to override the feature extractor there. Or somebody maybe synthesize the feature vectors. Okay, let's say it's your feature which are there, they are taken as a vector only. Somebody may synthesize this particular vector there. Or your matcher is to override the matcher only, because these are the processes which are there: sensor, feature extraction, matcher, a store template, and the application device which is there. Now there can be so many places where you can be attacked. Somebody maybe intercept the channel there or modify the template there. Okay, let's say how exactly your match, you make a template. In case somebody modify the template itself, store template, then obviously it will match, it will not match. And it can be, let's say you do all these things, but somebody is able to hack at this particular level, override final decision, have your fingerprint matched. In case somebody is man in the middle attack, which we Professor Sanghi was talking on the other day, in case this sort of attack is here, okay, while the application, your decision is being conveyed, yes or no, he changes the decision only. So this is what we say, maybe this is overall perspective. And can you imagine most of the research which is happening are happening at this particular place? Yes, Mr. Patel, you want to say something? So this is what we got. Okay, this is what we say is the attack. These are the attack levels which are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. These are the attack level which are there, and there are a lot of research which is happening here in this particular area only. Okay, at the sensor level, as I said, it's a fake biometric which can be there. Maybe sensor has spoofed, false biometric submission, or the residual attacks are there. In case my sensor gives the fake biometric information there, and for a genuine user, it creates a fake physical finger to access the system there. That can be one of the thing which can be at the fake biometric level only. So this is what we say is this attack level 1. It can be sensor level attack, false physical biometric, fake digital biometric, denial of a service, false enrollment, or mimicry, or spoofing attack. All these are level of attacks which are possible in case of your first level only, your sensors only. What we have to think of is these are some of the defense mechanisms which are there. We say it's a liveliness detection, whether somebody is really there or not is what we say is the liveliness detection. And maybe it's a challenge response system which can work in this sort of environment. Then your level 2 attack is interception of a communication channel between sensor and the feature extraction by the adversary from the base for a type 2 attack. Maybe there is a interception which is happening between your communication channel and the feature extractor. There is some feature extractor there, there is a sensors there, communication is there, and somebody is able to intercept that sort of a communication there. And the adversary may replay a previously intercepted digital biometric signal bypassing the sensor. Okay, whatever are the information which is to be passed, he replays some earlier data which is there. Maybe masquerading is one of the type 2 attack which is happening in this sort of a situation there. So we call them as the attack level 2, the channel level attacks, reuse of a residues, man in the middle attack, and replay attack or the false data injection there. What is the defense mechanism? Can I think about encrypting this particular data, encrypting the path or the secure channel there? And maybe cryptography and steganography or a watermarking technique can be some of the technique which most of the researchers have used in this sort of a type 2 attacks. And your level 3 attack is, in case attacker can override the feature extraction module to mount a type 3 attack. Whatever feature extraction module you have done, it override that particular feature extraction module there. Maybe he copies a Trojan horse at some point of the time, and it can be controlled remotely there. So this is what, in case these sort of attacks are there, feature extraction level, override feature, denial of a service, Trojan horse attack. So this is a defense mechanism which most of the researchers have used. It provides protection with Trojan horses can be applied here to protect the system against this kind of attack. Maybe in case I can handle this Trojan horses attack in this sort of a situation. And another is in case between feature extraction and the matcher, a communication channel between the feature extraction and the matcher can be targeted by the attack. This is another point of attack which can be there. It adversely intercept the feature transmitted over the communication. Basically, it is your communication media which is there, which is unsecured, which is being misused for any of the attack on the biometrics. The adversary intercept the feature transmitted over communication channel and replays after time gap. Whatever are the features which are stored somewhere that can be used bypassing the feature extraction module, whatever he does. So we call it as a channel level attack. This is some attacks which has been identified. A system parameter overrides, hill climbing attack, or a brute force attack. And in the defenses, this is the code signing technique can detect any tampering or alteration in the code. In case you go, there is one technique which is being used by some of the researchers. They say in case I use the code signing technique, and then I can mitigate this sort of attack. Maybe you use challenge response technique and help in detecting attack involved in synthesize feature vector there. Now, then we have got this type of overriding matcher attack. The threat to the matcher model overriding the matcher score using Trojan horse. Some matching score he gives, but he override that matcher score there. And this is what we say is the type 5 attack. What it does is it sends a high matching score and sends a positive response to a biometric controller there. So that can be one type of attack which can be there. And or it can mount a denial of a service attack by giving a command to identify definitely generate a low matching score, because whatever score are being generated over here, somebody can override this matcher and generate, because basically what happens in a biometrics is it generates a score. It doesn't give you 100% matching based on your criticality of application. It matches maybe 95% or 99%. If it's a small attendance thing only, maybe I can go for a 90%. If it matches, I say okay, it's acceptable. But in case it's a critical structure critical installation there, maybe I go for high level of matching there. But in case somebody override this matcher, that can be one sort of a attack which can be there. Maybe override the matcher or the files match, which give by attacking software. Maybe how is it being done is by attacking software, firmware, system configuration, and the parameters which are there. This whatever is the match score can be overridden or ignored or replaced with a match. That's the biggest issue which is there in this sort of matching. And authorized users are unlikely to notice any anomaly as the system may continue to provide this access. Okay, in case you go for a matching, it gives you a either very high score or very low score, ignoring your score which has come. Then what is the defense mechanism? Most of the researchers have proposed is a multi-biometrics. Multi-biometrics is either you take care of more than one biometric along with a finger. As I said, instead of only thumb impression, I go for all 10 fingers impression. Or along with one thumb impression, I go over the eyes impression also. So either it's a multi-biometric or a multi-modal biometric, can reduce the probability of attack at this level to a greater extent. Maybe there is a code signing which we perform. Then there is a, because as I said, once we go for a biometrics, based on the matching, there is some template which is generated. But the intruder can explore the ways to for the template database to leak. And this is what we say is the type 6 attack. And the adversary not only collect the leaked stored template, but also replace them and modify them to get the authorized on behalf of the different role users. In case somebody modifies the template or he replaced the template, earlier template, then that can be another issue as far as the biometrics is concerned. Maybe you want to think of this attack can be at the stored template level, unauthorized template modification, template reconstruction, steal, delete, modify, substitute templates, unauthorized system access. So all these is what we call as a level 6 attack. And you have to think about some template security approaches. These are some of the template security approaches which people have applied: sorting, non-inverting transform, key building, biometric crypto systems, key generations. So all these are nothing but some of the mechanisms some of the researchers have utilized in their processes there. Now then we got this level 7 bit, which is intercept the channel itself. Adversary intercept the communication channel between the template database and the matcher model to collect template from the data stream. This is another attack which is there. Basically, it's an attack which you can call it the man in the middle attacks which are there. These intercept templates can directly replace the altered and then replace the match templates models. So we call them as channel level attacks or modified template attacks there. Maybe you think what is the defense mechanism? Some of the people have utilized is cryptography, timestamping, watermarking. That watermarking is another technique which we use for this particular work there. And a last one is override the final decision. You have performed all the things, but somebody is able to override your final decision which you're taking. That means adversary can bypass all system components, directly manipulate the system decision is favored by type 8 attack. You gone for a sensor, you gone a feature extraction, you're matching store template, but at this stage, whatever is the decision, let's say it's a yes or no decision there. It's the moment is a yes decision, somebody is able to override this particular decision of giving the no. If your fingerprint doesn't match, but it says yes, and your cache is dispersed in this particular process. So we can this is what we say is override the access rights, modify the final decision, and we say the defense measures of multimodal biometric system can be one of the possible remedies to this type of attack. So this is what we say. Most of the research which is there in a biometric security is based on this particular 8 defense attacks which are there, right? Maybe now I can pass on my session to my research scholar Nancy. She will be the one. Okay, what exactly we are doing in this particular area? Hello, Nancy. I can stop my sharing. Nancy. Amandeep,
Hello. Yes, sir. I'm here.
is
Nancy.
Nancy there?
Nancy is there, sir.
Can you transfer the
Uh,
presentation right to her? She can
sir,
make.
I've done that. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Nancy, I have given you the presenter rights. You can just share your content now.
Nancy, you have to unmute.
She's unmuted, sir.
Okay.
Nancy, are you able to hear us?
Hmm. Nancy, you're not audible. Nancy, you're not audible. Amandeep,
Hello? Yes, sir.
Nancy is not audible. क्या हुआ?
Sir, don't know. She's saying to wait.
Okay.
क्यों नहीं आ रही है? पे वो माइक है उसपे? माइक नहीं है ना, वही तो कोई या तो दे दो ईयरफोन्स पे माइक। यहाँ पे तो नहीं आ रही है, एक बार यहाँ तो बोलने की। So she's trying, but I think there is some issue with her mic. So
Okay. What is the mic she's trying to use? A mic or a system mic?
earphones,
Huh?
earphones mic, sir. Nancy, your content is visible, but your audio is not.
Yes, it is visible, ma'am.
Amandeep, what we can do is, if voice is not audible, we can break for tea at this stage. maybe in case she's able to set up her things, who's got the next lecture?
Rahul sir from Delhi Technological University.
Okay, he's from then we'll not can't disturb. Okay, then we can break for tea here at this stage. In case you got anyone any doubt about myself, they can ask, or maybe we'll find some time, maybe in the evening or after 4, for 15-20 minutes, where we would like to show what is the work which we people are doing in the fingerprints. Right?
Right, sir, that would be fine, I guess.
Let's break for tea for half an hour. Then we can join at 12. Fine.
Okay, sir. Thank you all the participants. So we'll be taking the break now and we'll meet back at 12.
In the team, in the meantime, you can, Nancy, you can also, you can try to see if her things can be resolved. Amanji?
Yes, sir, I'm in touch with her. We'll just try.
Just try to see if it's
I think
because
she has earphones without mic or something like that. Some issue is there.
or she might have switched off her mic. उसमें एक बटन होता है जो करना पड़ता है.
Okay, sir, I'll just check with her. Whatever
Check
is
with her.
possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
हेलो. हाँ नैन्सी, क्या हुआ? नहीं नहीं, उसमें ईयरफोन में एक बटन होता है जिसमें माइक के पास ना, वो बटन दबाना पड़ता है.